Hello and welcome to the Event Bestie, the show that unlocks the magic of event planning by taking you behind and before the scenes. I'm Tanya Hales. In today's episode, we'll be chatting with one of my favorite DJs, DJ, that's her DJ Lissa Monet, seasoned veteran in the space, event DJ, corporate DJ, concert DJ, club DJ. She has been there, done that, seen it all, listened to it all, played it all. We're going to be talking DJ pet peeves, DJ FAQs, and the things that your event DJ wants you to know. Let's get into it. Hey, Lissa. So we are here because you are one of my most favoritist DJs of all time. And wanted to have a conversation with you because you have such a breadth of knowledge and experience in the space, and not obviously just as a DJ in clubs or etc., but you do often corporate client events and other types of pop-up activations, etc. So that's why I really wanted to have this conversation with you, and I'm really, really excited. So for the people who don't know, by the time that they listen to this episode, they will know, but who are you? How did you get here?
Well, I am DJ Lissa Monet. And how did I get here? By force. No. I got here because of the love of music. I always grew up listening to music. Music was always an integral part of my life. Growing up, I played the steel drums, which required you to be musically knowledgeable as far as like knowing chord progressions and learning how to like read sheet music and stuff like that. And then in high school, I went to Cardinal Carter Academy for the Arts, and my major was music. So once again, applying the same skills of like learning how to read sheet music and, knowing chord progression and major and minor keys and chords and stuff like that. You could tell I haven't studied that in a while, so I'm just pulling keywords out of my ass. But and then just like it, growing up in a Caribbean household, there would always be music playing on weekends when it's time to like clean the house. Like I could not study for exams without music. Like music has just been ingrained in my DNA. So that's pretty much how I got here. I started going out to parties and clubs way before I was supposed to. And I developed a lot of friends with a lot of DJs. And, back in the day when it was safer, all the DJs used to just kind of hang out after the club 3, 4 in the morning talking about new vinyl that was supposed to come out or new releases from new artists and producers and stuff. And, I kept up with the conversations. And one DJ in particular, Kirk from Four Corners, who is the official DJ of the Toronto Raptors now, he was like, your music, I'm going to teach you how to DJ. So I would like go to his house when I had spare time, and I would learn the basics on how to like blend and stuff. And then when I got comfortable doing that, I bought my own set, and then I became my own personal basement DJ, because that's all I was doing, was DJing in my basement at home. And then years after that, he hit me up and he's like, oh, I got a residency and I want you to open for me. And I was like, what? So that kind of like transitioned me into like clubs. And, I realized after, facing my fears of being in front of people, but I was really good at that. So then I started like making mixes and but shortly after that we went digital. So we had to transfer all of our music from vinyl to MP3. So I literally spent a whole Christmas holiday doing that. And then I started making digital mixtapes for promoters that did clubs around Toronto. And then that's how I got my in doing clubs in Toronto. And then I did that for like, 15 years, I think. Can't remember, it was a long time. And then that landscape started to look grim. And I was like, I need to get out of here. And so I started doing corporate events. Now, I don't quite remember like the transition into corporate. I think it was because a lot of the people who worked in corporate would go to the clubs that I DJed. So it was really easy to just reach out to them and be like, hey, if you've got any like corporate gigs or, holiday parties or whatever, I would love to DJ those. And then those started like pouring in. And then it got to the point where I was like double and triple booked for gigs, corporate gigs. So I started giving them away, so to speak, to other female DJs who were on the come up, who I thought were really, really good in Toronto. And then I was like, I could turn this into a business. And then that's how I became the owner of a DJ agency. And I just started, we just started placing, me and my business partner, Cleo, started placing female DJs at corporate events across Toronto. My watch is talking to me. Sorry. Yeah. And then like, that's how we kind of, and that's how I got here where I am right now.
I love so much of that story. First of all, this is why I try not to do too much research on someone when I'm doing an interview, because I don't want to know the entire story before we get here. I had no clue that Kirk from Four Corners was basically your like sensei who helped to launch everything. That is so fire. And I love that you took that and it became the genesis of you not only starting a business, but it's rooted in elevating female DJs in the city, which I absolutely adore. So I think that there's so much synchronicity, if that's the word, or fulfillment there. I really, really love that.
And it was just basically using my relationships and my skills to move on to something else. Like, I guess as a female, it's a little bit different. Some females may think otherwise, but, I just didn't, it's easy for male DJs to be 50 years old and still in the club for some weird reason, right? Like, it's just a little bit harder for us. I also did not want to be that person. I didn't want to be that 50-year-old or even 60-year-old female DJ. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just personally didn't want to be that person, still in the club, still partying. I think my life was changing, and the things that, I just knew myself. I knew that I couldn't get up. I couldn't go to bed late at night and wake up early the next morning because, I wanted to start working out. Like, I knew that living that nightlife lifestyle wouldn't afford me to do that. Some people can do that, no problem. Right. But I think I was just getting a little child. But like, I just couldn't. There were just the drinking. I just I couldn't do any of that stuff anymore. And then, I just couldn't. When you start out, and I know I'm probably like dipping into like some of the questions that you have, but when you start out, you're a lot more tolerable about things that happen in that world. Right. And then as you get older, or as you seep yourself into the landscape a little bit more, you're just like, nah, this doesn't, how you're talking to me doesn't sound right. And how you're speaking to me doesn't sound right. And what you're paying me doesn't feel right either. So, and like, you just sit and you think about like, why is it taking this person so long to pay me when they had a full packed club full of people? And, you start doing the math, and it's not, it's not calculus. It's like, it's pretty simple math, right? It's like 100 people show up into a room and they all pay $500, simple math. You know what I mean? It's not equations and
it's not if this, then that.
Exactly, if X then Y.
And Johnny had 5 apples.
Right. So you're just like, okay, so it started to become, okay, we're in the business of taking advantage of people. And I didn't want to be in that business anymore. So when I transitioned over to corporate, it was a lot easier because corporate is just very straight. They message you, they email you, they ask you if you're available on a specific date. If you're available, great. They ask you what your needs are. You ask them what their needs are. You know, you tell them your rate and your price. They agree or they don't agree. You send them an invoice. They write you a check. And you do your job. And that's it.
And you be out.
And you're out. You don't have to chase people down for money. You know, you understand when their pay cycle is. You just roll with it. You know what I mean? So, and, you know, I started doing a lot of weddings too, which was also very easy. And I actually enjoy doing weddings. I know a lot of DJs don't enjoy doing weddings, but I love weddings. I don't know if it's like the lover girl in me, but even doing weddings from a business side was super easy. It's like, you know, they reach out to you, you do the exchange, you set up a few times to talk about music preferences. They send you a deposit to lock in the date. You do the date. Everybody's happy. They give you your balance either at the end of the night or the next day. And that's it.
Yeah, like muscle tov and
and go, right? So when I transitioned into corporate, it was a lot easier, but then I'm only one person. So for me, it was like, okay, well, let me share the wealth and give other females an opportunity to, number one, do the gigs that I never got to do when I first got out, and to spare them the BS of all the things that I went through when I first started. So, you know, with LUXELIFE Sound, it's a little bit of client education in regards to, like, you know, okay, when you hire a DJ for 8 hours, you have to like give them breaks. You have to, you know, ask them if they want water or a drink, or give them the opportunity to use the washroom. Like, there have been times where I've DJed for 8 hours and no one's asked me if I wanted anything to eat or drink. They just think I'm up there playing music, having a grand old time, and I'm not, and I don't need to use like the facilities. It's wild. So, you know, it's like we just like let clients know, it's like, you know, if you want to hire a DJ for over 8 hours, like, you need to provide them with like 2 15 minutes and a 30. Like, it's a regular job shift, you know? So that was kind of like our thing. You know, we just didn't want our DJs to be taken advantage of, because a lot of people see DJs playing music and think that, oh, they're just playing music and they're having fun.
Exactly.
Like, no, we're on our feet for 8 hours or for 6 hours. And, you know, we're concentrating on who's in the room so we can provide music to make sure that everybody in the room feels included as far as like music preference.
Yes.
So, and that takes a lot of brain work, and, you know, and then you're dealing with, you know, tech things, and you're dealing with a lot of multitasking going on. So we just wanted, with the agency, we just wanted clients to understand that it's not just hiring a fun DJ who's going to come and play music. It's, you know,
it's
work. Yeah, it's work. It's like how you work, they work.
Yeah. What I love about that and the education part there is, just because it's a fun thing, like, of course, music is fun, right? It's a fun aspect of the event. It doesn't negate the human side, because you could have a playlist run for 8 hours and call it a day if you wanted to.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that later. But when you're hiring a human being, human beings need breaks. Human beings need to use the potty. So it should go without saying. And I know for me, when I was in my event catering days, I always wanted to make sure everyone was fed, right? Especially at a wedding. Right. So, you know, you start with bride and groom, the parents, the guests. I'm like, y'all good? Great, fantastic. Then I go to the vendors. I'm like, the photographer has been up since the crack of dawn to the videographer, the DJ, and then the service staff, right? So like, there was always an order for me, because I'm like, if the DJ is like feeling faintish or they're not at their best, then, you know, they can't do the reaction, what's going to be that song that gets people to the dance floor, what's going to be the transition. There's a lot that you have to you can't pre-plan all of that because it depends on the crowd and the mood and the time of day, the weather's inside is outside. So much you have to think about.
If there's no oxygen going to the brain due to lack of food, what do you expect?
Feed your DJs, people. Feed your DJs. That might be the title of the episode. When did you first fall in love with DJing at events? When you made the transition from the club nightlife to the corporate weddings, do you remember the moment where you were like, yes, this is definitely the path that I'm on?
I don't remember the specific moment, but I think for me, what I loved about DJing corporate is that you had more freedom to play what you wanted. As far as like your musical playlist, like, you know, there were certain songs, like when you DJ at the club, the point is, well, not the point, but the gist of it is to play the most popular song, that everybody in the room would know. And that is usually like boiled down to, like, if you want to get technical, 100 songs.
Right.
So when you're at a corporate event, and the other thing that I also love about corporate event is that you're not centered, you know. And I just never was that DJ, you know. I was never that DJ that like wanted to stand up on the DJ booth and like throw cake at people and like, you know, do all the things and make it like a show. I just wanted people to, I just wanted to play the song. And I wanted people to have a good time, and I enjoyed seeing their reaction from it. And with corporate, it wasn't that, like, the DJ wasn't centered in the way that DJs are centered at clubs. So for me, it was like, put me in a corner and let me play some good music. I want to feel the vibe. And that's what I loved about corporate events. It wasn't, and if it turned into a party, great. And if it didn't, that's fine too, right? Like the goal and the objective of a corporate event isn't necessarily for it to turn into this wild club type party, unless that's what the client wants and that's like their objective. But 9 times out of 10, it's like, we just want a DJ to play really cool music that, like, you know, will get people drinking and conversing and, you know, just feeling good about themselves after they leave, right? And I'm like, no problem. So it allows me to expand my like repertoire, as far as like, I don't just have to play the popular songs. I can play songs from an artist that is familiar to them they may not even know, or a remix or something. And for me, that became like my goal, was to play like not necessarily the most obscure music, but to play the most unique music, where like if 2 people or 3 people came up to me and been like, what song is that? Then I've achieved my goal as a DJ.
Right. That's beautiful. I love that. And I think for me, this is an education for me. Obviously, all the events that I've ever planned, attended, you know, we know that the part of the Holy Trinity is, you know, the Holy Trinity for an event is the venue, the food, and the AV, and music is included in that, of course, because with bad sound, you know, with bad sound or a bad playlist or a bad DJ, like, we know, I mean, you know more than I do, but we know that if the mood is not right, like if the DJ is bad, it can just totally change the trajectory of how you feel about an event, especially if it's supposed to be that type of event, right? Like, go to a wedding and the DJ is just like playing the entire song and then they just go to the next song. I'm like, you're not even a DJ at this point. You're a playlist.
You're just pressing buttons.
You're just pressing buttons. Arg. So you related to this previously when you talked about your transition, but I would love to dig into it a little bit more about from vinyl to MP3 and digital, and if that changed both physically, because now you're not carrying crates of records, but like what else? Like, what was that transition? First of all, when was that? Because I'm trying to think, like, MP3s, like, that's like early iPod days, like,
Yeah, so
like
I think
2000
that was like 2001,
yeah.
2001, 2002. Yeah, no, I'm not going to tell you what it was, but yeah.
We were young bucks
Yeah.
with
With hopes and dreams
hopes and dreams.
floating around the atmosphere.
So you went from having to lug all the so actually let me start backwards. So you're gonna go to an event and you're like, okay, I'm going to this night event, it's from this time to this time. Do you plan your playlist so that way you pull the vinyls that you're going to need and then you bring all of those with you? Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So, but thank God I only did so I only opened for Kirk. So I didn't have to bring as many crates. So, it was all cataloging. Like you had to, even when you were at home and you bought the vinyl, you would have to catalog your vinyl according to artist, the title of the song, and then the BPM of the song. Like you had to know the tempo of each piece of vinyl. And like, you would do things that like you would normally do now that everything is digital. You would write on the vinyl, like sticker in the middle, like the BPM to kind of like give you some like ease some tension on your brain, because it's all brain work and it's all having to remember every individual song and like how it starts, where the downbeat starts so you can mix it in, and like, and then having to know like the tempo of each song, right? Like so transitioning from that to digital really eased the load, like the brain workload off of DJs. There were less things that we had to like think about and worry about. But then it ushered in a new dynamic where it was like, as that was happening, DJs were becoming more and more centered as far as, like celebrity even. And, a lot of DJs were starting to market themselves as artists because in the EDM world, like DJs are like, or even in the EDM world and in the house world at the time, DJs were quote unquote gods, right? Like when you talk to people about who are the top DJs in that world, it's like Tiesto and like, oh my God, I can't remember the name of the other guy, but because I'm not in that world at all. But like Tiesto is like probably one of the like is the first DJ that I think about when I think about that world. And it's like, even DJs like Black Coffee and Steve Aoki, and you know what I mean? Like, I think I said his name correctly. But like, those like Diplo and Major Lazer and all that stuff. So DJs were starting to become not only more centered, but then they were starting to become celebrities. So, and they're not playing on vinyl, they're playing on CDJs, which is digital. And it's like, it just seems like all they do is press buttons and like have a good time and like jump in crowds and like, live that rock star life. So I think what started to happen was people started to see that and say, oh, DJ is easy. All I need to do is just press a button on a song, pump my fist 1-2 times, and like, I know the lyrics, right? And what people fail to remember is that these guys aren't just DJs, they're producers. So they create their own music to play at these venues. It's not like they just pick a random song off the internet and like, press play. Yeah. So, what happened was, I guess, as that started to happen, people started to like become DJs for various reasons. And I feel like those reasons kind of watered down the art form of DJing. And because in the DJing world, especially in like the hip hop art, like the hip hop world, with nobody talks about Nobody talks about pay. Nobody talks about, oh, how much did this promoter pay you? We may all be on the same bill for the same party, but nobody asks, oh, did that promoter pay you X, Y, Z? And then, so there's no opportunity for everyone to get an equal pay. Whereas like in the EDM world, salaries are out there in the open. I know that Tiesto makes $100,000 a show or $1 million a show, right? It's just out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, in our world, it's very hush hush. And it's like, and then when, you know, shit finally hits the fan and you realize, oh, I only got paid $200 and another DJ got paid $600 at the same party.
Right.
It's like, what the heck?
Right.
You know what I mean? So there are a lot of factors. I can't even remember like where I'm going with the point, but there are a lot of factors that change the trajectory of like how people saw DJing, especially as we move from vinyl to digital. Like it just turned into a completely different stratosphere. And then now, you know, when you look at where we are now, it's kind of like carried on into different sectors and genres. So like, you know, in the African world, you know, you still have your DJs who, I don't know if you want to call it normal, but DJ the old way of DJing. But now you've got DJs who perform and dance while they DJ. And, you know, so that centering of the DJ has carried up until present day.
Right.
Which doesn't leave a lot of room for DJ like me who just want to play music and be in a corner.
You forever are just like, just put me in a corner. What's very interesting there is, because I felt that too, has just a guest and a person who, of course, has seen the changes in events where, yeah, everyone thinks, and it always does that. As soon as things are normalized and shown to be easy, then people are like, anyone can do this. I could do this. I could press some buttons. Right. And because what's lost in everything that you just said was the music is not being centered and the education is not being centered. And people think like, and now social media, which is a good segue, you know, you have DJs who have become popularized because of, I mean, of course, during pandemic, we were all stuck in the house. We were all listening to DJ, was it Nice? D-Nice.
Oh, D-Nice,
And then like, that's great. And then it kind of, it seems like every era begats, to use a very biblical word, and births a new era of DJs and such. So now you have folks who are making mixes and, you know, DJ, I think Amorous, who made a mix and then it became one of Beyonce's official remixes. And I love that, but I'm like, have you had to do the same level of education? Are you still rooted in the music and in the people more than making? But I think now even authors have to make themselves brands, right? You can't just be an author who writes. You have to market. And everything now is about, it's not about the skill or the talent that you're trying to showcase. It's about also making yourself a brand so that you can be memorable and marketable and make your coins and get these brand deals. It sounds exhausting.
In the time frame that, you know, that you have, right? Because the time frame isn't always the same for everyone. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy because some of the people that you mentioned are talented. Yes, like genuinely, right? But I think there was a time when you couldn't tell who was talented from who wasn't talented. But I think now it's like there's so much fluff. It's like really easy to tell, oh, this person's like really talented and really genuine about what it is that they do, whether it's, you know, blending music or mixing music or producing music. And then you could just tell when it's like, oh, they just put this really good looking person's face on a, they plastered this good looking person's face on a, album cover or a single cover and made it seem like they produced the song when they really didn't, So it's like, I would like to think, and I have very high hopes for our society. I would like to think that the general public understands the difference now between the two. But, people are going to get in where they fit in, I think that's where we're at right now. People are getting in where they fit in. And, they're going to ride the wave as long as they can until the wave comes to shore. And that's it for them. And then somebody else comes along, and then somebody else comes along. And that's kind of like the cycle that we're in.
Yeah. It's always evolving and not changing. We're going to switch gears in our last two questions, which are going to be my favorite questions of this conversation, because I know that it's going to have some fun answers. What is your biggest pet peeve as a DJ at an event?
Oh, God. Where do I start? I think for me, the biggest pet peeve are the requests. I know that sounds so typical, but let me break it down for you.
Okay.
It's like the way we listen to music has changed so much that sometimes requests are like a 50-50 thing. So it's like back in the day when we just had radio, it was like there were 100 songs that were being played on rotation on radio. So when you go to a party and a DJ is playing, you can request any one of those songs and the DJ would play it because those are the 100 popular songs of the time. And I'm being sarcastic when I say 100. You know what I mean?
Well, no, not really. Because think about Casey Kasem and what's his name?
Oh, yeah.
Drops things in Times Square.
Yeah.
So
oh my God, Dick Clark. So
think about that. It really was 100 songs. There was a Saturday where they would run through the top 100. So you're not
100. Yeah.
Billboard 100 is still a thing. So you're actually not
right.
You're not speaking in hyperbole here. You're really legitimate. There was 100 songs.
There was 100 songs.
100 in pop culture. We could get obviously there was a country chart and there was a rock chart or whatever, but generally speaking, the pop culture, it was 100 songs.
Yeah. It was 100 songs in whatever party atmosphere you were in. Yeah. So if you were in the Caribbean scene, there were 100 songs. When you were in, if you're in the country scene, there's 100 popular songs. Pop scene, there's 100. It was 100 songs that you're working with, right? Then, the genius Steve Jobs came and said, no, you're going to listen to everything all at once, and gave us iTunes. I think the minute iTunes came was it was a headache for us DJs. It was no, I shouldn't say. It was a catch-22 because it was now you had access to all this music from all over the world at any given time, which you did before, but that's a different story for a different day. But now everybody has access to all different types of music at any given time from all over the world. So it's I'll be DJing a party, trying to get a general group of people who don't necessarily know each other to enjoy the same songs at the same time. And then you come along and you're like, can you play that third song off of the third album from Taylor Swift? And I'm like, ma'am, is that a personal request or is that a song you think everybody in this room would enjoy? So the request started to become a little bit more personal in the sense that, you only want to hear the song because you only want to hear the song. You don't want to hear the song because you think everybody in the room would enjoy the song. And that's the goal of the DJ, is to play a song that's
100%.
general for everybody. Yeah. So that's why requests are my biggest pet peeve, because requests have just become personal now. It's never like there's the odd time that someone will come and request a song and it makes sense in that moment.
Right.
And usually that request comes from another DJ because they get it.
Or someone who understands, or
someone who understands. Yeah.
Got it.
Exactly.
That's a really, really good point, because usually, like, if I might want to hear a song, or if I'm used to hearing certain songs back to back, and when it doesn't happen, I'm like, wait, that's not the song that's supposed to be next. But
right.
I think, like you mentioned Steve Jobs, his thing with the iPod was putting 1,000 songs in your pocket. And by doing that and changing the culture of how we listen to music, similar to how Netflix has changed how we watch TV shows,
movies,
such. Now people want you to be their own personal iTunes, and that is not your job. You have to be the iTunes for everybody, the collective, but more importantly, the clients, right? And what they want, obviously they want the crowd to be happy, but it's not the customer was always right type of situation where now you can go up to a DJ and demand a song, and now because it's digital, you have access to it. I'm sure beforehand they'd be like, I don't have that record, and they'd be like, oh, now they're like, well, you have to, because you have access to the internet and every song ever. And it's like, but it's still not about that. It's about telling a story ultimately, because how you start, the tempo of how an event starts and how the event winds down and everything that happens in between, it is still a story. And I think like, people need to understand that. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I mean, I don't go up to DJs anymore because, again, I'm an old, so I'm just like, if I want to hear a particular tune, I can do that on my way home. But now I'm going to be like, when I see people accost the DJ, I'm going to give them some bombastic side eyes and be like, leave them alone. Let them do what they're doing. They're authoring in real time to this group of people. So that's awesome. So
and I think the other thing, sorry. I think the other thing too, like when you brought up the Netflix point, it's like, and then it goes back to like my early days of like even just getting into the DJing world, where like, when we had vinyl, it was like, there was a sense of like, there was a social aspect to it where, all the DJs would get together and talk about the new releases and like, the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 releases that were coming out that week, and who was producing them and who was singing background vocals and who was blah, blah, blah. Whereas like now there's no, like now, like, so for example, with Netflix, it's like when I try to have a conversation about a show that I just watched to somebody, like, oh, I haven't seen that yet. So it's like, it's hard for you to have a conversation about a mutual show when you're the only person who's seen it and like nobody else has seen it. So it's like, we can't even have a conversation about that. Like I have to wait for you to watch the show. And like, and that's the same thing like with music and like just the way things have evolved, like where, before there was like a sense of not even say community, but like you were able to talk about a large group of people was able to talk about one thing in the time that it was happening. Now it's just like, it's hard to do that because everybody can watch and listen to things on their own time.
Right. It was a communal experience though. That's what's missing, right? When like a CD came out, we would all go to HMV or Sam the Record Man or Play the Record, buy it.
Like, there are specific albums that I remember that came out where everybody was like involved.
Yes.
Like everybody was talking about it. You get on the phone, you call your girlfriend. Oh my God, like Justin Timberlake came out. Probably not a good example, but Justin Timberlake came out. Like Erykah Badu came out. TLC, Crazy Sexy Cool came out. Like, did you listen to the 4th song? Did you listen to the 6th song? This is my favorite song. This is my favorite song. Now it's just like
reading the liner notes.
Yes, reading the liner notes, see who produced it, who sang background vocals, who got shouted out in the shout out. Like now it's just like it's a race to listen to the song first to like give your opinion about whether it's good or bad.
Yes.
You know?
Which is enraging. You know, I think about Cowboy Carter and everyone's like, what's your favorite song? I'm like, guys, first of all, I've listened to the album like maybe once and I was distracted because I'm a parent, right? How I listen to music now is very different. If I listen to that album, I hear it differently when I'm driving than when I'm in my house. And when I was in my house, I was doing something in the background. I think I was working on podcasty things when Cowboy Carter dropped. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to play it while I'm working. And I was like, I'm not giving it the attention that it needs. So I literally I went to bed, I put my AirPods in, and then I listened to it. And I heard it differently because I wasn't engaging my brain on anything else. And then when I finally got to listen it in the car, I was like, whoa, wait, I hear these songs completely differently. So I'm like, don't ask me what my favorite song is. First of all, to this, I think I've settled on one, but in that first 3 weeks, it was changing every other day. I'm like, this is my favorite. No, I'm like, nope, this is my favorite. And because where you are, what you're doing, what your headspace is, does change how you hear the music. So I think that there's so much there, and yes, we can speak to Beyoncé and Taylor Swift who have tried to bring that back, dropping albums that their communities circle around and pour into and try to deep dive what the meaning is and all this stuff. That felt very much the back in the day feels, but they're one-offs, right? They're both artists.
Yeah, exactly.
Do what they want. They can take control of how they release and they're not doing singles. They're doing whole albums. They're world tours, all these things. Right. That's not the general gist of what the music industry is doing. They're dropping 1-2 singles. They want to trend on TikTok. And then they might give me an album. Maybe.
Right.
So I totally understand.
Mediocre at that.
At best, because it's not a full project, right? It's meant to be consumed in bits and pieces. It's not a full course, 3-course meal the way that Taylor and Beyonce are giving us. So I totally understand. Hopefully people, when they hear this, they're like, you know what? I never really thought about that. I'm going to think about this for when I'm planning my wedding or planning a corporate holiday party, whatever. I'm going to stop harassing DJs, with my random requests. I think that this was a really, for me, and again, I've been in the event space for how long? Many moons. This was such an educational and eye-opening conversation for me as well. So I really appreciate your extra time and deep dive into the world of DJing at events.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. It was a really amazing conversation. It made me reflect back on just the way DJing has evolved and, how it's changed, psychologically even, and, with different elements brought in, with social media, digital, and even, the evolution of controllers. It's just interesting to see how we've gone from two turntables and a mixer to where we are now.
Yeah. You're a lot lighter physically. You're like, oh, okay, MacBook, let's go.
Which is, it's like a blessing and a curse, because it's you're a lot lighter, but it's a lot of chaos, because now you've got a million different versions of controllers and a million different versions of music applications to use, and it could get really overwhelming for a new DJ. So it's I'm glad I started DJing when it was a simpler time.
I hear you.
And that's a wrap for the episode. Lissa, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me. We've known each other for a long time. You've been in this space, I've been in this space, but I still learned a ton from our conversations today. Thank you so much for listening, and if you liked it, find that follow button so I know it's real. Until next time, we'll keep the red carpet ready for you.